Well, hey everyone, and welcome to Pushing the Limits. Today, I am super excited. I have two amazing people. I have Bradley and I have Maggie with me, and they are a powerhouse duo behind a new documentary that is coming out soon, or a new movie, Cancer. It's all about cancer. And as you guys know, my story with my mum, I'm very interested in this topic. So I came across these guys and I thought I have to get them on. So welcome to the show. It's fantastic to have you. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. We are so grateful to be on this, to have figured out your story and just to be able to contribute to you spreading the message.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us today, Lisa.
It's fantastic. So guys, where do we start? I think we start with Maggie's story. Would that be a great place to start? Maggie, do you want to share a little bit about your journey?
Of course. I think some of your listeners may know I was diagnosed with terminal cancer back in 2018. I was given less than a year to live. It was lung cancer, non-smoker, that had spread to everywhere. My liver, 2 tumors, eventually 4 in my brain, 2 in my eye, and over a dozen lymph nodes in my chest and abdomen. I have pictures on my website where you can see the tumors popping out of my neck. I mean, everything was visible. I was dying. I was on oxygen. It was the end. At first, I just wanted to be a good patient, to die well, to have Brad be proud of me. And that lasted about a week. And at the end of my first weekend after my diagnosis, I was reading up and I decided to start my first fast. And I'd never fasted before. It was 24 hours. And since then, I resolved to only eat foods that would be actively healing to my body. Actual food is medicine. And poor Brad had to run around Hong Kong, where we lived at the time, trying to find all this organic food. And I started reading more and more about the metabolic theory of cancer, the metabolic approach and treatments. So I started a ketogenic diet. I happen to be plant-based, but that's certainly not a requirement. And I saw a lot of improvement very, very quickly. Wow. And it was 1 year after my diagnosis that I was completely cancer-free. No evidence of disease were my scans. It's been over 2 years now that I continue to have clean scans. I will note for your listeners that I have some side effects from my treatment. Yep. The radiation that I got from my brain tumors has resulted in bright radiation necrosis. Yep. So sometimes you'll hear my speech is a little off.
I think it's beautiful. It's pretty bloody good to be.
Yeah, like 3 years out from her diagnosis, 2 years cancer-free. We're not dealing with cancer anymore. We're dealing with the effects of the medicine that was used to help her, which honestly, I shouldn't use that in quotes. It did help her. But, obviously we're a little upset that, like the medicine is now what we're dealing with.
I totally get that. And actually I'm going through that right now. Having made the difficult decision, do you do any conventional? And we were actually with Mum's story, complete, turnaround from terminal cancer, very fast moving, aggressive B-cell lymphoma, to in 8 weeks of doing the diet, doing a very strict diet. She wasn't happy with me, but we did it and we're doing it in combination with a whole lot of off-label drugs, and that's what we're going to get into today, and the whole thing around this metabolic approach. But in 8 weeks, we had a MRI scan just 5 weeks ago now, and it came back, the words were almost total resolution of the tumors, and amazing. Awesome. Yeah. So I get Maggie's story, and I've seen your pictures, and I've just wow, we only had them in the brain, but we had them in the brain, a different type, and obviously Mum's 80 and had massive brain damage prior. Radiation is one of those questions in my mind, one of those things. Chemo, this is an ongoing decision that I'm having to make, and we've just been through round 2 and it's knocked the crap out of her. And so these are the daily decisions we have to make. Do we carry on, and do we just do the metabolic approach? And that's what, I'm still scared scared to.
And you know what, we were just talking with someone else about this lately, where you get diagnosed and then it's almost like a rush. Like you have to get treated, get the cancer out of you. And it's like, if we had to do it again, we really got rushed into the radiology. Yeah. And it was if we had to do it again, maybe we'd take a little bit slower pace. She'd obviously been living with the cancer for probably years.
Wow.
Granted, because she was stage 4. And it's it's not like it had to be out the next day. we could have probably spread out these treatments, maybe try to lower dose and up to the dosage, that kind of idea.
But there's so much fear in the beginning that it's hard not to just, I want it out of me, anything, do it.
Yeah.
And the great thing about metabolic treatments is they can work with or without conventional therapy.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Yeah. And that is so true. And Bradley, how was it for you as a husband, with your beautiful wife in this situation? How did that impact you?
Immensely, and at the same time, we kind of had a little tough love. I tried to hide how much it impacted me from her, right? I didn't want her to see me crying, which happened a lot.
I get it.
I get it. Go to the bathroom.
Get it.
But at the same time, when we were together, I just always had this feeling that she was going to make it through. I don't know why, but I was just I knew my wife, I knew how strong she was. And I was just if anyone is going to fight this disease, it's her.
Yeah.
And so there would be times where I could tell that she needed me to, to be there for her. And I would just be come on, you could do it, suck it up. And, it's there's even a couple times where she was just I really just need a shoulder to cry on. I'd be okay, sorry. I pushed it too far.
At first. I was I'm dying of cancer. Give me some pity, man. Let me sit on the subway.
And I was a little too much your coach at the gym, come on, you can do
it. That's exactly what I do, Brad. That's exactly what I do. I'm a hard ass. And Mum's everybody's can't you just give her a bit of a break and have a day off? And I'm no, she's got to go. She's got to do, and I'm we got this. And people are just in my family, and they were like this the whole way through with their aneurysm too. But that attitude, Brad, is the key one. I know there are moments when you should be the husband and not the coach, but 99% of the time you do have to be that. And you're so lucky, Maggie, to have that, because, and it's hard not to, to be, because of course I would love to not make her train and not push her through hard exercises and not put her on a horribly strict diet when maybe I'm eating something that she would love to eat, or, but I can't back up, because you have to be that person that is willing to do that, because you don't want them to lose them, and a lot of people don't get that.
Being treated like a normal, healthy person, made me live up to being a normal, healthy person.
And honestly, that's really what it was. It's not I really rode her. It was just, I just kind of treated her like I always had. And she was that I wanted a little more sympathy.
I have months left. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to, but I did. And I'm so grateful.
And one of the other funny things is she's the one that did the research. She's the one that found all the metabolic treatments and reached out to these other, writers and doctors. And so she was I was learning through her. So when I was giving her a hard time, I could tell there was times where she was I should have never told him that.
I have to be on the
I would just spit her advice back at her, and then she would just
But he joined me eventually. He was amazing. He started eating everything on my diet, which was very restrictive at the beginning, one meal a day, pretty much a salad.
Yep.
And he loves the results as well. We're actually in our 5th day of fasting this month.
Yeah, we're doing the fast right now.
Man, you got so much discipline. I've never got Mum that far, and I've never got myself that far on the fasting front. We're not bad. Mum's certainly very strict. I have her on a very strict, but I can't get her to starve. She just won't do it.
If you do the radiation for her, absolutely. Fasting 3 days before, I had 2 rounds of radiation surgery for 2 tumors. The first one, I thought I was eating healthy and was good, but still afterwards, I was 3 weeks in bed, vomiting, sweating, just never went to work, the worst. Wow. The second time, just 6 months later, I walked home from the hospital on a Friday, and I went to work that next Monday, and I felt great. And the only difference was I fasted before the second round.
Yep, and I've heard that. Yeah, and before the chemo or before the radiation?
In this case, radiation.
Radiation, yeah, I have heard that. Dr. Dom, I have Dr. Dom D'Agostino on. He was saying that.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to in our documentary, a lot of the people that we've interviewed, I mean, they swear by this. The idea is that the fasting sort of makes your normal cells sort of close up a little bit, sort of go into like a little sort of hibernation type state. But your cancer cells are still out there like looking for glucose, energy, like trying to like spread. So so it ends up they're more open to the radiation, and your normal cells are more closed off to it. So it has a nice effect.
That was such a good explanation there, Brad, because that's exactly what it's doing, eh? And you've got some real heavy hitters on this cancer documentary. When I went through the list of people that you have, I was just like, wow, those are all the people I want to interview too,
Thank
like
you very
Angela
much.
Poff.
We're very lucky that all these people said yes.
This community has been amazing.
Wow. And Walter Longo's work, I mean, he is amazing what he's done in the fasting mimicking diet, and not just for cancer, but also, just in the fasting realm and for anti-aging and in the whole thing. And you've got Angela Poff, you've got Jason Fung, you've got Dr. Charles Meakin, who I'm hopefully going to be interviewing shortly.
Great.
Got an email back from
Maggie's
him.
doctor.
Oh, wow, he's amazing. And I loved that he went against, when he started to realize the metabolic side of cancer and wanted to do some work on there. I remember in that little short interview him saying that, everyone else was like, no, we can't be doing that. What is going on? Why do you think there is so much resistance? I read on your website too that the clinical research takes 17 years to get into the clinical setting from the lab, so to speak.
Average. I mean, Viagra is probably out in a year.
Yeah.
But that has zero profit potential. That's going to take 50 years.
Yep. And this is exactly this. You'll see in the background, I've got a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber. Can you see that? And that is another thing that you should research. I don't know if you've done any research on that for cancers.
We got one over here.
Yeah.
Oh, you got one.
For my brain.
Nap. Because that is like for brain.
It's not in frame, but it's like 15 feet away.
Amazing. Okay, so you're all over that, because that's another key thing, like when you combine the hyperbaric with the strict diet with exogenous ketones, which I've done an interview with Dom D'Agostino just recently and put that into Mum's protocol. Oh my god, that made a big difference. The off-label drugs, all of this is so basically what we're saying is like, can we go into the story a little bit about Otto Warburg and, how back then he discovered this metabolic anomaly in the cells. What happened? Why didn't we follow that up?
Well, I mean, this is the story of our documentary. You just nailed it on the head, which is this, what happened is that once DNA was discovered, everything just got left behind. It didn't even matter that there were inroads being made and there were discoveries being made in the biochemistry. It was just like, oh no, it's got to be the DNA.
It's so sexy. It's so
it's cool. And it is, like I study epigenetics and DNA, and I got hooked into that, and it is fantastic.
Well, epigenetics actually is probably part of the current. It probably really is part of the cancer story.
Yeah.
Genetics is a little different than the epigenetics, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, just for your viewers that don't know, I am not a scientist, by the way. This is just me, saying what the experts that we have talked to have said.
Yep, secondhand.
The epigenetics is sort of something that tells what genes to turn on and off. The genetics are the genes themselves. So it's a little like external factors.
I'll give an example. We all right now, every person listening has DNA in them for a prehensile tail. We all have tails in our DNA, but those genes are turned off by our environment, our evolution, all of that. So these genes can turn on and off, be expressed or not expressed.
Yeah, and every once in a while, someone is born in the world with a tail. It happens. It's like, so yeah.
Because it's what the genes are reading, and this is actually going a bit off topic, but listening to Dr. David Sinclair, who's written the book Lifespan, which is an incredible book, changed my life. the genes are like a 6-foot long strand in each single cell that is really tightly wound, and only the genes that are meant to be read in that cell are actually exposed and able to be read. The problem when we get older, and what actually causes aging, is the X differentiation of those cells. And so those cells are becoming, what is a brain cell starts acting like a skin cell, or a skin cell that starts acting like a liver cell, because the wrong parts of the genome are being read. And that causes chaos in the cell, and that what causes aging. And this whole, going back to the Dr. Warburg story, he was a Nobel Prize winner in 1924, I believe. He became, he discovered what they call the Warburg effect. Can you explain that a little bit? And,
yes, no,
well, it is, we're not scientists, none of us.
Again, not a scientist, just so I might not get this exactly right, but the main idea is that cancer cells will change their way of making energy. Most of our cells will use oxygen, which is a much more efficient way of making energy. Cancer cells, even when oxygen is available, they will use fermentation. And it's a much less efficient way. In fact, it's about a 18-to-1 difference. You get one
ATP, 2 ADP instead of 30.
It's 36 to 2 or 18-to-1, depending on how But so it's kind of this weird phenomenon. Like, why would cancer cells use this much less efficient way to produce energy? There must be some other reason for them to do it. And that's, even though everyone agrees that this Warburg effect is happening,
it's a fact.
The why, this is a fact, but it's the why that we're now trying to figure out. There's sort of a few different theories on that. We try and get into a couple of those in the documentary for sure. But this was just kind of left behind, that it was thought to be downstream from the genetics.
But this is the point.
The idea is that maybe this metabolism, this Warburg effect, is actually driving the genetic changes, like this is again the epigenetics, right? So the mitochondria are sending a signal to the nucleus to change the formation, to change the cell. And that's
the big debate at the moment
of the somatic mutation, or also known as the genetic theory.
Somatic theory or the genetic theory. So whereas a genetic theory says that these genes have mutated and caused these changes in the cell, we believe, it's the other way around. And it's a bit more complicated than that, but it's not just the genes. Yes, the genes are mutated, but it's coming from this fact that it has a different metabolic approach, hasn't it? So if we can block off the food supply to a tumor, because if we can just put this in simple terms for people to picture, you've got this tumor that's growing. It's very fast growing, so it's proliferating very fast, and that is a hallmark of cancer. And it's creating its own blood supply. It's sucking energy out of the body. It's using up glucose like no tomorrow. And so what we're trying to do is to cut off the food supply to the tumor without killing the patient. And this is like, How to Starve Cancer title that Jane McClellan had for her book, and without starving the patient. And so cutting out glucose is a good place to start. No sugars, no carbs. But it's much more than that. It's actually, the fatty acid synthesis, the glutamine, all of these things. Even the apoptosis can become a form of food for the cancer. And this gets quite complex very fast. But what we're trying to do is to block off as many of these food supplies as possible. Firstly, with diet. Secondly, with a combination of off-label drugs. And the Care Oncology Clinic has a really good approach, and so is Jane McClellan's, and these are all overlapping, and there are some slight nuances as to what things are involved in the protocols, and it depends on what your cancer is and how old you are and a lot of other factors. But basically, these off-label drugs, things like metformin and mebendazole and doxycycline and atorvastatin. These are commonly available drugs that have got a huge, long history, good safety profiles. The doctors know what they do in the body, and these have been shown to cut off different food supplies to the tumor. And depending on your type of tumors and whether it's a metastases or a primary and so on, as to which tumor pathways you've got to block. Did I put that nicely?
Yeah, and the one thing I would like to address right off is the biggest criticism I get promoting this like starve cancer idea, even though that's a little simplified, is that, well, your cancer can adapt. It can choose different metabolic pathways eventually. And my answer to that always is it takes time to adapt. And I was given 6 to 8 months to live.
Yeah.
If my, starving of cancer brought me another 3 years of life, this is time to address the next pathway when it comes up, and to wait for the next conventional therapy that might help me, and all the new research that's coming out. So
exactly,
even though a diet's not going to cure your cancer, it's going to buy you time and buy you incredible quality of life. Yeah. And these drugs that you mentioned, this 4-drug protocol, is very low side effects, especially when you compare it to something like chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. It's been amazing. I've been on this protocol for about almost 3 years now. And it was one of the biggest changes I made before I had that no evidence of disease scan back in 2019.
Wow. And how did, so with your cancer, did you have to keep developing the protocol? Because this is a question in my mind too. Okay, I got my mum on this very complex protocol. She's on over 100 tablets a day, plus a strict diet, et cetera, vitamin C infusions, very big part of my protocol, hyperbaric. It is, and we've reversed everything, almost total resolution. Hopefully by now it's total resolution. But is it going to shapeshift? Because cancer is a shape-shifting thing, and it does adapt its metabolism. And if it does adapt its metabolism, how do we know what are the things that we need to change? So that's one of the questions that's running around in my mind. What's working today might not work in 6 months, and how do I then shift? I've been very, at the beginning, before I had all of the protocols and things come in, I was chucking mud at the wall, and I basically had her on everything known to man that I could possibly find. And she's got a very good stomach, I think, because she never had any reactions to it. But it says the question always, if I leave that one out, am I, is that the one, that's doing it? And those are the sorts of questions.
And I know I felt the same way. And one thing that we've become very passionate about is the idea of press pulse. And this came from Thomas Seyfried's research at Boston College.
In DOM,
And it's very supported by like Dr. Chuck Meekin, my integrative oncologist, that you use it for a little while, maybe you get some adaptation, you back off, you switch to something else, and then you reintroduce it. Right. And that's what's really helpful to me with my 100 supplements I take with oxygen therapy, sauna therapy, just so many things, but you bring them in, you take them out, and you keep cancer on its toes, because cancer is you. It's not a bacterial infection, a virus, a parasite. It is your body cells, and it's as smart as your body is. Yeah. But you're still smarter, and it buys you this time as you continue to adapt to find new methods that are going to help you.
And people do actually get cures. I mean, if we look at Jane McClellan, she is cured. I mean, with someone like my mum, it's hard to say if she's cured, because we can only ever see in an MRI whether the tumors are there. So there's no blood test that I could do to say, oh, yep, she's now back to normal. So there is no sort of marker.
Honestly, I was going to say, I would caution people from ever thinking they're cured of cancer, because I wouldn't want anyone to ever go back to eating fried chicken. No. It's like, I mean, that you pretty much, it's really hard to be completely cured. Your cancer's always somewhere.
Has cancer.
Everybody has
cancer.
That's true. We all have some. But my immune system is holding its own, whereas Maggie wasn't. That's basically what happened. Is her immune system couldn't fight it off anymore. Yeah. My immune system, I mean, who knows? Maybe it's not fighting it off.
When's your last PET scan?
You're bringing up a really good point. It is never good to go back to the fried chicken diet.
I don't want people to think like, hey, you just do this for 2 years and then you can just go back to your old lifestyle.
Let's go back to the lifestyle that gave you cancer.
Yeah. So right there, Maggie. That is just such a good on point thing. And most of this is sustainable once you are in it. And at the beginning, yeah, like with me, I was like super, super strict with what she ate. It was bugger all, it was one salad a day. And now there's a little bit more because we were running out of protein and albumin and those sort of markers, which are also longevity markers. And, you know, if your albumin levels are dropping, you're not going to be around on the planet too long, you know. So you're playing this game. And when you've got someone who's got a bit of cachexia going on and weight loss going on, then you are playing this keep the protein levels up, but don't feed the tumors game.
But also keto diets do prevent cachexia. Dr. Adrian Scheck did a lot of research on this, and Angela Poff, who we talked about in the documentary. And it surprises me that some oncologists are so opposed to it when it can preserve your muscle mass while burning fat. So I think it's more.
This is where I love the exogenous ketones. Because, you know, that for me with mum was, I actually got her into ketosis when I put the exogenous ketones in. Even though she was on a keto diet, we were struggling to get into ketosis because of the drug combination and so on. And when I put her on the exogenous ketones, wow. And then her weight loss stopped, you know, touch wood, we're stable now on the, with that.
Yeah, we actually, we were just talking to a maker of ketones, and we were, you know, just like, gosh, it would be great if there was just more research on this. And unfortunately, like on exogenous ketones. Yeah. And just unfortunately,
it's still coming. Yeah.
I mean, it's even further behind the keto diet, right? It's like it's like first the keto diet is going to make it through studies, and then the, you know, exogenous ketones are probably going to make it through studies, you know.
And for me, it's like a low risk undertaking, you know, and it helps. I'm on them as well. And even if I'm not in a full keto diet, having ketones in my body, I'm in a light stage of ketosis, which is fantastic, you know.
I was just going to say really quickly, this goes exactly back to what you were talking about of starving the cancer cells. Like, well, but not killing the patient. Yeah. Your body will just make a metabolic shift from using glucose to using ketones for energy. And that's where these exogenous ketones can come in if your body's not making enough of them. Yep.
And when you're 80, like a lot of things don't work in mum's body. So I don't know why she wasn't producing them herself very well, but now she's in full ketosis, and we keep that on that ratio, the 1-to-2 sort of ratio, with her glucose being 2 and her ketones being, you know, 1-to-2 ratio. And I have my brother's on the keto diet, and he's an athlete and a surfer, and, you know, big wave surfer. He's got the nationals this week. So he's gone into full ketosis, and he's on the exogenous ketones, and that has helped his transition into the keto diet. Otherwise you get the keto flu and you feel like crap. And it's at that point that a lot of people give up. So having these exogenous ketones can really help, just for, you know, athletes as well as, you know, cancer patients. But it's really, it's teaching your body to be metabolically flexible, isn't it? And when you're doing the fasting on top of it, and the intermittent fasting or whatever protocol you're using, all of that is helping your body to learn to be more flexible. And it's what it can use. And Dom D'Agostino said to me, that ketones, the exogenous ketones, are not fermentable as a food source for cancer. And I think that's, you know, that was the click for me. I was like, okay, well, if that's the case, then I'll put it in the regime as well. Because before that I was like, fats, you know, could fats be feeding it? Now, Brad, you've got a little video clip, I believe.
So I mean, we can do the trailer. And also we've been talking about Chuck Meakin and these sort of off-label drugs. So I have like a 1-minute clip of him as well. Yeah, well, let's do
the trailer. Do the trailer first, and then we'll see. So for those who are on the podcast and can't hear this, you can watch this on the YouTube channel. And I would love everybody to actually go out there and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because all my podcasts are up on YouTube as well, and you can actually see this. But you'll be able to get the gist from just listening to it. So I've given you share rights there on the Zoom there, Brad. So go for your life.
Give me 1 second here. Sorry, we're almost.
And also this time, as I always do, just stepping back a little to what we were talking about before with, you know, I'm so inspired by Jane McClellan's Cure. And some people, I'm so lucky to have found that. But everyone doesn't have to aim for that. I look at somebody like Dr. Nisha Winters that we also interviewed, who's survived 30 years now with her stage 4 ovarian cancer.
Wow.
She's never been no evidence of disease, but she's lived such a powerful life helping others. She was diagnosed too late in her progression to ever receive chemotherapy.
Yep.
And I think that's really what we can all strive for is, you know, even if your scans aren't perfect, you can still live such a long, full life, and don't give up hope.
That is amazing, Maggie. And that she's lived 30 years like that, you know?
Yeah, 30 years. She was diagnosed at 19 years old. She just turned 50, I believe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Great story. Yeah, she was a great interview. Yeah.
Okay, I need an intro, don't you, too?
Okay. Yeah.
Introduce me to everybody, please.
Yeah, she's not in this trailer because we interviewed her at the late. Well, she was a late interview, but yeah. Anyway, so here we go. Let me share.
So it's all yours.
Okay, here we go.
The CanceRevolution.
It's very interesting watching scientific theories come and go, especially with regard to cancer, because it's such an emotionally charged subject.
Almost 100 years ago, in the 1930s, all things had to become most of what we knew about cancer.
But when Watson created this really drew a line. It was a massive paradigm shift.
And everything went out the window. We wanted to do the old boring stuff. It just seems so much more interesting to get into the code, get into the DNA.
The theory of cancer is now that we have all of these genes that then are the seeds for cancer to develop. A lot of cancer research is done sidetracked. It's very seductive theoretical template that you go from these mutations and design targeted drugs to hit these mutations, and this leads to cancer therapies.
Has it made a difference in terms of the personalized medicine and targeted therapies? Nowhere near as much as people think.
People have returned to this idea of metabolism important because the research just has become more and more.
Some cancer being the problem with genetic damage. The genetic damage is self-inflicted. It's interesting because cancer biology was so far off in genetics, and now you see this shift. These ideas have been around, but nobody seems to have connected the dots. When you start looking deeper into this, there are some cancer cells that have no genetic mutations.
The goal of cancer therapies is to kill the tumor before you kill the patient.
The hospitals benefit, the doctors benefit from it, the pharmaceutical companies benefit. It's a huge money revenue generation system. I often say the problem in science is it's done by TV. This evolution. There is an alternative. How come nobody's telling you about these alternatives?
We don't have a good understanding of what cancer is.
We're still really early in this story.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Brad, for sharing that. We'll have to see whether the audio came out okay on it. So apologies, people, if it didn't. But what we will do anyway is link to the website for the CanceRevolution movie. And what I would ask my followers to do is to maybe make a little donation, because this is still being made and it costs a lot to put out this sort of information. So if anybody feels so inclined to contribute to this work, or in other ways as well, and share this with everybody, that would be a huge contribution to this project, which we're all very obviously passionate about this subject.
Yeah. I just want to, hopefully you enjoyed the trailer, but that is my background. It looks like we have money. We don't have money. I just do that for a living. So
you're very bloody good at
that's
it.
That's where that's kind of coming from. And obviously my wife was lucky, or not lucky, I should say, but just fantastic to reach out to everyone. And we were lucky that they said yes to get those interviews. So
absolutely. But I bet that
it really is a passion project for us. So,
and we'd like to offer your listeners and viewers a link, to our fundraising page. We can offer half-price donation to get the full video electronically as soon as it comes out.
Just a pre-buy of the movie, just for your listeners. We're doing it special.
But also instant access to our our original music, our posters, and an extra 5-minute clip that Brad has
You get some
already
little goodies just
Well, you wait.
right away.
It's just about supporting. You know what? I've done a number of grassroots documentaries, Brad. You know, with my running over the decades. You know, like running across the Gobi with a bloody camera like this, and and had a few on television and on film festivals and so on. I know what it takes to do. I mean, and I'm not a filmmaker by trade, but I just bumbled on and did these things. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money to do this properly. So, you're amazing what you're doing. And yeah, people tend to think, oh, you must be loaded or something, but no, that's not necessarily the case. You're just brilliant at it. And this is a story that is so important that it is going to save lives if we can get this message out there. And this is what this show is about uncovering the latest, greatest science and giving people that information so that they don't miss out. They don't die because they didn't know. When I was at chemo a week ago with my mum, and I'm sitting there talking to the people around me, none of them know about the metabolic approach to cancer, and they're all sitting there eating their sandwiches and their orange juice, and I'm just like, oh my God, like why is this message not getting through? And when I talk to the oncology experts in our country, and I've had a lot of appointments with a lot of different ones, 90% of them didn't know anything about the metabolic approach, and some of them did, and they knew enough to know that it's interesting, but not enough to know any more than that. And
that's another aspect that we touch on in the documentary is you could actually lose your license as a doctor if you went all in on this. It's this stuff it's not officially proven yet. It's not officially approved by the FDA yet. I mean, something as simple as changing your diet, right?
But it takes 3 rounds of clinical trials that can cost over $1 billion. And
that's not going to happen, is it?
There's no money to be made by a pharmaceutical company on the other, to even start the trial. And then once the trial's through, no one can sell you a ketogenic diet.
No.
So
and this is the problem with whole medical, this is not just cancer. This is why things like hyperbaric never get attention. This is why things like intravenous vitamin C don't get the attention. This is, why we, even in the current crisis that we're all in, there's a lot of things that are not right, put it that way, without going into a deep hole on that topic. But people have to understand there's money machinery behind all of this. There are reasons why some things get promoted and others don't, and it may not even be malicious intent. It's just that this is going to make us a lot of money, and that one's not going to make us any money. So why would I spend $1 billion doing clinical research? Clinical research has very big limitations. The standard randomized controlled double-blinded trials is not the only way. And we have to start understanding that. And if you've got a loved one dying, are you going to wait for the clinical trials that are going to take another 20 years to come out? Or are you going to do it now if it's a low-risk undertaking? For me, it's a no-brainer.
I want to tell this story without revealing any names, but one of the very prominent cancer researchers in the metabolic field that we talked to is trying to push this metabolic theory and gets a lot of resistance. But he's a neighbor of someone who runs a pharmaceutical company who ended up being diagnosed with cancer and immediately came to knock on his door to say, I can't promote this, but please tell me more about the metabolic therapy for my treatment. Yeah. And it's unfortunately a story we can't tell in the documentary, but it hit me so hard. Yeah. And it's nobody's individual fault. It's definitely systemic, a problem with the institutions. Nobody goes into medicine wanting to hurt other people, but we have to do something as grassroots, as you say, as individuals, even if it's just anecdotal reports like your mother, like me, like so many of these experts, they're out there, and it could be any of your listeners who are listening to this.
Yeah, and when people...
we had one other story, again, this is off the record. We can't tell you this person's name, but someone tried to buy this person out so that the information that they are putting out will not get out there anymore.
Wow, that is evil. Now that's evil.
Multi-million-dollar payout. They wanted to just pay this person to stop doing what they're doing.
Wow.
The person, of course, didn't do it. They didn't take the money, but we were just like, this is someone that's in our documentary. We won't tell you who, but all the people, not just all the people in our documentary are really legitimate. So that just tells you the level
Absolutely.
of that.
Yeah, yeah. And they haven't been brought out. And this is what's happening over and over again in this whole crazy world that we live in. Some of it's malicious, some of it's just systemic problems that we've built because of the way we've done things. But this needs to be reassessed, and people are dying because of these system failures and because of, yes, some evil people out there doing some evil crap. And we need to be aware of it, and we need to make informed decisions in all areas, you know, not just in the cancer side, but in everything. And this is where the taking ownership is what this podcast is about, taking ownership of your health, being in that preventative space, doing the testing and preparing and, you know, doing that extra hard work before you're in the poo, you know?
Yeah, and trying to give people a roadmap. I feel like that's really one of the things that we want to, I don't know if that's going to happen in this documentary specifically, but it'll get the information out there. And then we'll give you you can find other sources, like, you know, like our documentary is going to be the step one.
Yeah.
And then you can find all this information out there. I feel like so many people, they just don't know where to start. They don't know what to do.
If your doctor doesn't tell you, it's so difficult under the stress of this diagnosis to do the research yourself. You need that roadmap. You need a little handle.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, you're amazing, Maggie, because you actually, you know, even though you were sick, put the effort into all this research, which is really, really hard. I mean, I often think if mum didn't have me, who's an absolute science, you know, buff anyway, out there researching constantly every day for hours, she wouldn't come across any of this information, you know?
Honestly, my family, people we've interviewed are just like, even we have family members that don't believe, like, this is, my wife has made it, right? Like, it worked, right?
Yeah, I know.
Like, we have other people that we know, very close people, that are like, and we're like, so frustrating.
But it's your choice, and that's fine. As long
it's
as
your
an informed
choice, but
decision.
yeah, it's like, and
but it's like, the narrative, isn't it? It's the narrative, and it's the power of the, you know, but my doctor said, and my doctor is God, and my doctor is the only one I listen to. And it's like,
told me.
Yeah, it's
there is other doctors, and other doctors are saying this, and there is not a unified body of knowledge of in science is not unified. One doctor will say something and another one will say something else. And of course it's very confusing, but it's up to you to go and dig through the weeds and find out, well, who is, you know, saying the right thing and doing the right thing. And I've got, like you, my mum sitting there alive, you know, what more proof do you want? And they just go, well, that's just an anecdotal story. I'll go, well, it's a freaking
important.
I mean, scientific theories get overturned. I mean,
and they're all theories. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But one thing I'll add, we talk about theories, the somatic mutation genetic theory, the metabolic theory. None of these have been proven. But to me, what proves a theory is the technology that can be built around it. And a PET scan is what's the common diagnostic tool for cancer now. That is based on the Warburg effect, the fact that all of our tumors, especially late stage cancers, 70 to 90% consume sugar. And so PET scan is to inject this radioactive sugar into your body. You wait while it all goes to the tumors, and then you can see them.
See where the tumors are. Hello, they know that.
Yeah.
And then they'll give you some orange juice on the way out.
Yeah.
You know, like some cookies to go with it. They don't get that's what it, you know, there's a reason why they use that in the PET scan to locate where the sugar's been taken up to 20 times the amount.
Because of the Warburg effect.
Exactly. So maybe there's something there.
Maybe.
And what have you got to lose? You know, you have to go on a diet. Yeah. It's not very pleasant, but you know, you know, like it's better than dying a horrible death. You know, that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Your cholesterol might be too high on keto. I was like, I have 6 to 8 months to live. I had to.
Yeah, that ain't my problem.
I saw him. Like, high cholesterol is not my concern. Thank you.
I tell you what, Brad, I want to put another, like, you know, once you've got this one out of the way, I've got another documentary that I dream of making. Okay. So
let's hear it.
It's here. I mean, you'll be like, oh my God, no. So a year and a half ago, I lost my precious dad, and he had a massive aortic aneurysm in the stomach. He was a smoker, unfortunately. My dad didn't listen to me a lot, you know, and smoked way too much. And he had this big aortic break, you know, and they did the operation. He was 81 years old. They didn't even think he'd make the hospital, but my dad was incredibly strong and fit. He survived. He survived this massive 6-hour operation, 28 units of blood, cetera, et cetera. And then he looked like he was going to pull through, but then he developed sepsis. And I was aware of the research around intravenous vitamin C and sepsis. And I was fighting in the hospital to get him intravenous vitamin C. Something pretty bloody simple, right? It is a recognized medication here, but not in our hospital. And so I fought for 15 days against the ethics committee and the staff in the ICU, and I had to get every single one of them board, and I had to fight to keep them on life support while I was fighting these legal battles, right? And to do something that they had no more answers. There was nothing more that they could do. He was dying, and I was saying, well, let me do the intravenous vitamin C. What is the, but it was a legal battle, not a, is this going to work? I came with the clinical studies. They said, we don't care about the clinical studies. We're not legally protected if we let you do this. And I'm like, but he's dying, surely there's a way. Anyway, I fought and I fought and I fought. And I eventually won the right, but it took me 15 days to do that. And by that time, of course, he had multiple organ failure. He was at death's doorstep. He was expected to die at any moment. And I found a loophole where my GP could come into the hospital and actually administer the vitamin C. And she did that. The very first vitamin C that she did, we turned his C-reactive protein dropped in half from 246 to 114 or something. His kidney function went from 27 to 33%. We got him off noradrenaline. He was able to hold his own blood pressure, et cetera, et cetera. Amazing. And he's at death's doorstep. Like, we're talking, all the organs starting to shut down. We needed it every 6 hours. The protocol was every 6 hours, big dosages. And I could only get a smallish dose, and I could only get it every 18 hours. Every time I had to battle for the second, for the third, for the fourth. 2 days later, they forced me to take him off life support, and we lost the battle for him. And it was just the most, heartbreaking time of my life, because I knew that I had something. And had I had that from day one, I believe, and I can never prove this, that my dad would be with me now. And yes, we'd have a big rehabilitation journey. And they were like, but he's 81 and what, and I don't care. This is my dad. And he's a fighter and I'm a fighter. And they wanted to get rid of him. Once he got to a certain point, there was just like, get this family out of here, basically. That's the truth.
You say like you couldn't prove the effects of vitamin C. The one thing you could prove are the effects of not giving him the vitamin C. They knew he was going to die.
Yeah.
Why not experiment with something else?
Exactly. Why can I not do that? And I pulled out all the stops that you could possibly pull out. And, and they knew that they know I'm an activist in this space. So I got listened to because they were scared that and they made me agree to a non-disclosure agreement, which I've just broken by sharing this, and I don't care. Sue me, I've got nothing to take, really. Like, what are you going to do? You've already, like, my dad's gone.
But I think a bigger takeaway from what you're saying, and that one of the things that Maggie and I try and tell everyone is, you have to be, as a patient, you have to be your own advocate. Yes. Right? Do not just listen to what your doctor is saying. Your oncologist or any doctor, they only meet with you for a half hour, right? Like, and Maggie sees her oncologist for like about a half hour, every 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and they've got 1,000 other patients to deal with.
I know they go through some charts and they look at some things before she gets there to familiarize themselves with her case. I'm not saying that they only spend 30 minutes a month on her, but there's just no way that this person can know all the ins and outs of what is going on with your body. You, as a patient, you know what's going on in your body. And I'm not saying to use Dr. Google as your only doctor, but the research is out there. It is so easy for us to get these days. I would just say for everyone out there, take a look online and at least bring some of these things up to your doctor. That's
PubMed, and you can listen to podcasts with the greatest professors. Which is just like going to university and being in their class. I can listen to Andrew Huberman or Dr. David Sinclair, and I can learn everything from them. It's fantastic. I can read books, I can go to PubMed. These are good quality. When they say to me, oh, you're one of those Dr. Google, it really makes me angry.
Where did you learn this? In a textbook? I learned it from a textbook online.
A textbook online. What's the difference?
It's all knowledge, and sometimes your doctors don't have all the knowledge. It's just,
and they can't, and they're so busy and they're overwhelmed, and they've got a 15-minute slot or 30-minute slot for you, and then they're on to the next one. So this is where having a coach or having a person that's going to advocate with you, sit with you, research with you, fight for you, because the other thing that I see is ageism in our system, where if you're over 65, get them out of the system as fast as you can into either a rest home, which in the case of my mum, they tried to put her into an institution. You'll never cope with her. You're never going to do it, because they didn't want me to take her home where she was still in their budget. And that's the God honest truth about it. And with my dad, he's 81 years old. He's only going to cause more troubles from here on in. He's a statistic to them. He's my dad, and I lost the battle, and I have to live with that every day. I have to live with the fact that there was something that I could have done and I didn't get it done for him.
Oh no, you've done so much.
It sounds like you tried as hard as you could.
I did, but maybe I should have, done more. I don't know. I didn't know what else to do at the time, and it's a shame to have been put in.
You're working within the system. It's very.
And intravenous vitamin C, Brad, is one of these things that has got so many 80 years. It goes right back to Klenner and Linus Pauling, and it's just like the cancer story. So if you ever need a next project, come and see me.
And for any listeners who are like, oh, there's no evidence for it, there've been two solid experiments. Take a look at those experiments, because both of them gave the intravenous vitamin C with glutathione, which is an antioxidant. So you have an oxidant plus an antioxidant. You're not testing.
And the other one was the Mayo Clinic one that tried to replicate Linus Pauling's work when he was actually helping cancer patients live 4 times as long, and he was only giving them 10 grams, but they did it orally. Orally is not intravenous. Intravenous works completely different. I've done 5 podcasts on this subject with different scientists from around the world after my dad died, obviously, to do my form of a mini doco. To get that information out there so that people do. And my mum is on 3 times a week, 60 grams of vitamin C. And that is keeping her well, That's a really, really important part of it. So, hey guys, you've just been absolutely amazing today. I just love you guys. I think you're just awesome. I want to support you in any way I can. So please, let's do more of this. And if you can introduce me to any of the other superstars on your, I'm keen for making this another outlet for you guys to market this.
It sounds like you've got Dr. Chuck Meakin coming up, and Charles Meakin, and he's going to be a great interview. He's really, it's Maggie's doctor, and that's going to be fantastic, I'm sure.
He's a brave and courageous doctor. I love these doctors that put their asses on the line because they know something is right, and regardless of it's maybe going to hurt their careers. And it may be they even go. We've got doctors over here fighting, in this current COVID situation, who are standing up for the science and putting themselves on the line. And to me, they're courageous. They're courageous people when they're trying to get the truth out there. And we all need to be a part of that story. I think getting our things about cancer, vitamin C, all of these things are really, really important. Thank you, guys.
Oh yeah, actually, if there's time for just one more.
Yes, please.
We were talking about epigenetics before, and now that is completely impactful for what is expressed. To me, this means that you are in control of your body. There's so much of this message. I've heard it from some very important researchers in cancer, like, oh, non-smokers, lung cancer at 40, you're one of the unlucky ones. I'm not unlucky. There are very clear therapeutic things that I can do, that I did to get cancer, that I can do to get out of it. And we need to promote this message of you're in control of your medical destiny. Don't just listen to somebody else who tells you it's a lost cause or
Absolutely. That's what I do in my company is epigenetics, right? So we have I do DNA testing, and we do an epigenetics program, which is looking at what influences your genes and how to optimize your environment to those genes. And that's a very powerful thing, because when you understand, just an example for me, I was an ultramarathon runner, right, for decades. That was the wrong type of exercise for my genes. So I was making my body express in a certain way that was not, good for me in the long term. So I had massive amounts of inflammation and infertility and hormonal issues and so on and so forth. Now I know what my genetics are about. Then I can go and say, all right, epigenetically, I am much more suited to doing shorter, sharper, high intensity trainings that only last for up to an hour. And that's where my sweet spot lies. And I should be doing it at this time of the day and not that time of the day. And I should be eating this type of food, and my mum should be eating that type of food. And we can get much more granular now by using this information about the epigenetics. So epi being above, and what influences and what turns on and off, for the want of a better description, your genes, so that it's optimized. It's beautiful, and it's an evolving science, and we're getting more and more information. I'd love to take you through that, actually, guys, at some point, do our epigenetics program.
We got a few more months before the documentary is going to be coming out, so maybe we can do another one of these.
Absolutely. Please do. All right, guys. Well, I will let you go now. Any last words we're going to put the links, CanceRevolution.com. Is that right?
CanceRevolution-movie.
Oh, sorry. CanceRevolution-movie.com. Okay. Links will be in the links. Yeah. And we'll get that link.
Special link for you.
The special link for my followers. Thank you very, very much, guys.
Actually, one of the really easy ones is if you just go on YouTube, type in CanceRevolution with just one R, all one word.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, you're there.
See all the clips.
Oh, okay. That's brilliant.
YouTube.
Okay.
Great way to use. Yeah.
We'll put that link in as well. Guys, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much.